the podcast for heroes in the world of Overwatch. This is The Payload.
What is up, everyone? This is the Payload Podcast, an Overwatch podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com. I am Jimmy Bloxam, and with me is Kevin Hoffs. Oh my gosh, I am so terrible. I'm not used to introing you like this. Kevin, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. For the record, Hovdestad.
Hovdestad.
It's not too bad, I promise.
There we go.
Anyway, yeah, man, it's so good to be back. I feel like I know we had like a couple of weeks where we didn't do the payload because there wasn't much going on, and the weeks that it did happen were weeks I was away. I feel like I've been away forever, and I'm really glad to be back, set up at the new place, ready to throw down tonight because we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. And unfortunately, missing tonight is John Horschman, the ringleader of this podcast. So I will be your guide for our episode tonight, episode 19. It feels like we just started this and the beta just got kicked off, and look at where we are now.
Yeah, we're staring down the barrel. We're a month out from real release, and I got to tell you, I'm very ready. I got my big screen all set up in the living room, ready to throw down on some Xbox Overwatch. Obviously, PC's all good to go because here I am, so ready to go on that side as well. And yeah, it's gonna be crazy to think that we've been just like academically talking about this game since BlizzCon of 2014, and it's here. It's weird. We're on the very edge of being able to enjoy the live release of Overwatch.
Yeah, we're definitely on the cusp of that, but enough talking about it. Let's get into the news.
This week in Overwatch.
The rumors are true. The closed beta is coming to an end. It's the 26th, if I remember correctly, or 27th. It's very, very soon, though. 25th. Okay. So it's sooner than I had hoped for, unfortunately. So, yeah, the closed beta is becoming closed on the 25th. And it seems like we just started. We just had that open weekend, or not open, but extended weekend for additional invites. And here we are coming to the end of this. This has been what, a 6-month, 8-month beta, and we're minus the 2 months that it went away.
I was gonna say it launched kind of last fall, realistically, fall 10th if I recall correctly, and we're now looking at it shutting down 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time on the 25th. We had obviously the downtime over sort of the holidays as well. No additional players at this point going to be added to the closed beta as of when that announcement came out, which was actually a couple of days ago. So if you're not in the beta at this point, you're either waiting on the pre-order access, and pre-order access opens on May the 3rd, or the all-access open beta for all people who want to play on PC that runs from May 5th to the 9th, which will also then close down, and there will be that sort of 2-week gap between the end of the open beta on May 9th and the actual game release on May the 24th. So there's been a lot of up and down time, but it seems to me like at this point, Blizzard's gotten a ton of data. The balance refinements that we're seeing, and we're going to go over those in a little bit here, are very minor. Basically, it's little incidental tweaks where they'd like to see something, up or down a fraction of a second in duration, right? Like they've got to be pretty comfortable with the state of the game at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something Kaplan mentioned in the developer update video about the closed beta ending here. And one thing to note about the open beta starting is that also will bring online the console beta. So that'll be, I think, anyone outside of Blizzard's first chance to play on console. I don't know if they've ever had it playable at any events. It was not playable on console at any BlizzCons that I know of. I don't know about the PAXs, but yeah, as far as I know, this is the first time Overwatch will be playable on a console for people that are not inside Blizzard. So I'm excited for that because I also pre-ordered the PS4 version just to see what it's like on console. And I have friends who are console only, and so I want to be able to play this game with them because of how fun it is. And so I'm looking forward to trying it out and just seeing how the game feels on a console versus PC. And based on how Diablo 3 worked on PS4, I'm really confident on the transition between the two here, and I feel like it'll play very, very similar to how the PC version plays.
Yeah, we've talked at some length about this. I mean, to your first point, I do not believe that the console version has ever been playable at any public event. If it's ever going to be, it will be this weekend at PAX, which we're also going to talk about here very shortly. But yeah, I agree with you absolutely. The console version of the game, I expect to have all of the same fluidity, all of the same core features as far as obviously Blizzard's matchmaking services. I don't think there'll be any substantive differences between the PC and console versions. If anything, I think the one noticeable difference will be because of the style of control. You'll probably find that there will be kind of an emergent console meta where some of the characters that need really, really fine control and at the highest level of play, mind you, is what I'm really talking about here. Some of the characters that you need really, really finesse control over, like Tracer, for example, where you really have to be able to make very minor adjustments to your pathing before you hit buttons, where you want to be able to take advantage of quick maneuvers. It might be more difficult just because even with the sensitivity dialed up to 11, proverbially speaking, you're not going to have that same raw finesse available to you on any console. But outside of that, no, I mean, I've said time and again, I will probably play this game primarily on console because it has that really great sort of vibe to it. It's going to look amazing on the big screen. It's going to run like absolute butter because the engine is so well done. And graphically, when you've seen examples of the console play, because they have put out examples of what it looks like being played on a console, it runs so crisp. So on modern generation consoles, yeah, I would be shocked if it isn't basically perfect in every way, and just you don't get to be the number one sniper in the world on a console because nobody is. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. That actually reminds me a little bit of another topic I wanted to bring up briefly, and this didn't make the show notes, but I wanted to really hear your thoughts, and I'll share my thoughts, I guess, first on this. Tracer got released this week in Heroes of the Storm.
Yes.
Doesn't that just to me feels a little weird that this hero from a game that's not even out is playable in another Blizzard franchise right now, which it's just kind of funny that that's how it worked out. And I'm just curious, what do you think of that? Do you think it's a little silly that it's out before the game is even out, or you just think this is great marketing by them to really push Overwatch as they move forward here? And we're going to talk about more of their marketing later on in the show, because the marketing is in absolute full force now for this game, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I would like to say I think Overwatch right now is probably, I'm biased, but I think it's probably the second most hyped thing coming out of Blizzard right now. They've had an incredible marketing campaign for the game. They've done a lot of work to make it very visible, not only to the general public and to promote it very heavily because of its console presence on those platforms, but also they've been very, very strongly trying to get this cross promotion occurring between all of their other games. In the like modern Blizzard world, this is probably the most extensive marketing campaign they've done for anything outside of Warlords of Draenor in terms of one single product. And I think in terms of raw dollars being spent and visibility, second only maybe to Hearthstone. But on the whole, I'm super thrilled with the availability of Tracer in Heroes. Honestly, I think it's a great idea. I think it probably drove a lot of pre-orders and made her very attractive as a point of interest. If you haven't seen it, and you don't have to be a Heroes fan even to necessarily appreciate it, go and watch the Heroes of the Storm Tracer trailer.
Yeah.
Because seriously, the voiceover work in that is probably like, I play all the Blizzard games. I love all the stuff they put out, but the voiceover work on that little trailer is some of the best I've ever heard. They just did such an enormously good job of nailing the feel of Tracer, despite the fact that it's clearly not in the Overwatch lore. It's not part of the Overwatch paradigm. It's just so well done. I was really blown away by it.
Yeah, there is just so many splashes of her character throughout that trailer. And I really absolutely loved, I lost it when they had the throwback to the original Overwatch trailer, reveal trailer, where she jumps up and she's like, I just lost what exactly they say. Oh yeah, that is awesome, or whatever it was. And that was just so cool. And just seeing her interact with these other heroes that she normally wouldn't be able to be interacting with in the world of Overwatch is so cool. She blinks up in between Johanna and Kerrigan, and she goes, "Love your hair," and she does this like hand movement, and it's just like totally gets her attitude down perfectly. And then at the end, they totally tease us with a either, I'm guessing, a Widowmaker skin for Nova, because the way Tracer acted, she's like, "What? You're here? What are you doing here?" So it was just really cool. Yeah, if you haven't seen that, you absolutely have to check it out. It is one of the greatest things Blizzard has done as far as Heroes of the Storm, I feel like, and it absolutely nails Tracer's character.
Yeah, no, 100%. Some of the best Tracer related content, like, in my mind, honestly, even put the last digital short to shame, because obviously it was good and clearly it was more focused on Widowmaker, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. Other things that I really enjoyed and thought were immensely well done. If you haven't seen this already, because it is basically brand new as of today while we're recording this, the brand new Overwatch comic series is officially online. And the first example of a comic that we got today was number 1 McCree is the first character they're featuring, and this was so cool. They did such an awesome job. The web team on this just made it very interactive, very kind of fun to flip through and see each frame being added. The comic is called Train Hopper, and it's kind of a story about McCree trying to just sort of like stay out of the limelight, trying to just get from place to place when some clearly bad people, it doesn't actually really spell out exactly who they might be, are attempting to get something that is on this train. And McCree very definitely gets the outlaw vibe in this. So I don't know, Jimmy. I mean, I'm not a huge comic guy, and it's not something that I've been heavy into, but I felt like the execution on this, especially as far as what it looks like and how it feels as a web piece, was really well done. And I imagine that the physical comic will be just as good, just as interesting to look at. But what did you think? Did you love it?
I really loved it. I mean, it was very short. It's unfortunately the same how I kind of felt about the digital shorts, that they get you in and they really suck you into this world and this story, and then it's over really quick, because this one's only like 10 pages long. But yeah, huge props to their web team for just how it's revealed. Basically, if you haven't seen it yet, you click through the pages and each panel is revealed on that page as you click through. So it really helps you focus on that panel and really go through it at a pace that works for you. And was it confirmed that this was going to be a physical release as well? I don't remember reading anything about that. I hope it will be, because I think it would be a shame to not have a physical copy of something like this.
I don't know. I mean, I know you can download a PDF version of it right now. Mm-hmm. So I have to operate under the assumption that with the fact that there is this non-interactive version of it that isn't just the web version, that the intent would be that they're going to produce it in a comic form. What we may see is them do it as more of an anthology, because I can understand that like there have been other Blizzard comics in the past, right? Things that have been included in collector's editions or released separately, and quite often, to your point, they are quite short, so they don't necessarily feel good about charging people a whole boatload of money for them. So having said that, yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if maybe they released a handful of them, and that handful of comics was released as a physical anthology that you could buy, all kind of wrapped up in one package. But yeah, I mean, if they put these out as real on print paper comics, I would probably go for it.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, go check that out if you haven't yet. It's a really fun story to really dig into.
Yeah, you can just hit comic.playoverwatch.com, go straight to it. Right now, that's going to take you straight to the McCree one for this first one called Train Hopper. And hopefully more are going to be coming fast and furious, because like you said, Jimmy, I know they're kind of piecemealing the content out right now, but I just want more.
Yeah, definitely. And going on to additional promotion stuff, PAX East is this weekend, and we've seen a couple big name streamers go pick up Ubers over there in Boston. And oh, they were a little special, a little different than your traditional Uber. They were branded with Overwatch logos and colored in the personality of that hero. And even the drivers, I saw a couple pictures, the drivers were dressed up as the hero that they were a part of. I know Jesse Cox picked up a truck that was Soldier 76 themed, and the guy who was driving it had the like blue jacket on, and his hair was like spray painted a little bit white and stuff like that. And then there was a Tracer one, and the woman driving that had the goggles and the jacket and everything for Tracer. So that was really cool to see. Obviously, Blizzard very much in full force at PAX this weekend. And did you want to talk about some of the Blizzard people have been teasing a little bit? And did you want to speculate on what could potentially be that tease?
It's hard to speculate because there's no way to know, right? Like in past years, PAX East has been a platform for Blizzard traditionally, and they have come to PAX East every year with something. In previous years, PAX East was where Hearthstone was first announced. It was where several of the updates to Hearthstone, including last year's Blackrock Mountain Adventure, were announced. And when JR from BlizzPro and I were there, they were showing off Blackrock Mountain and some of the stuff that was coming for the like Eternal Conflict theme that went into Heroes of the Storm. And they had Overwatch playable on the show floor. This year, supposedly, what we know right now is Overwatch is the thematic core of what Blizzard has at the show. So they have no panels booked that cover any non-Overwatch games. They do not have any demos for non-Overwatch games. It's 100% Overwatch. And I think a freaking Tracer-wrapped Lamborghini lends to the theory that they're probably going to be out in force specifically for Overwatch. What they could be announcing as far as additional information at this point is super hard to speculate on because honestly, what is there left to say or do? I mean, we know all the characters that are going to be in the base game. We might see another map here or there, but really it's not of major consequence, and that wouldn't be an enormous announcement. Previous maps have just showed up in patches, and they haven't gotten a lot of fanfare. So I don't know. I think it's way too early for anyone to be announcing anything as far as like additional future content or heaven forbid like an expansion or anything. So we're gonna have to assume at this point that they're just maybe gonna show up, let people maybe play the console versions if that's camera ready for people, which we don't know right now. I think they're just there to really push sales of the game. I think they're there to make people think it's super cool, promote the visual, the aesthetic, get people excited about the story and the rich world that they've created, and develop more buy-in. This is just all part of the big plan to make this game very, very successful early on, because in a perfect world, right? Look back to, if you remember when the beta first opened up, it was the biggest thing on Twitch for like a day. And I think when it releases, you're going to see another big surge. Tons of people playing, tons of people streaming. It's going to be, I would guess, the most sold thing on either of the console platforms for a long window of time after its initial release. So hopefully they're just there to really pump it up. I would be shocked if there was anything really like out of left field before the game comes out is the big thing.
Yeah, I'd be shocked. I mean, it was just a couple tweets from some community managers being like, oh, if you're a Blizzard fan, make sure you're paying attention to PAX. It's like, I don't know. They could mean absolutely nothing. It could mean something. Who knows? We'll just all have to wait with bated breath here.
World of Warcraft 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Who knows?
Titan. Just kidding. But anyways, speaking of Twitch numbers, I was actually checking out on Monday. There was a Ghost of Gamers tournament for Overwatch, and that I was surprised at the numbers it was getting. It was over like 2,000 viewers, so I think that's a pretty healthy number considering the game isn't even out yet and this is in beta. So people are definitely interested in checking out the competitive scene of this, and I'm really excited to see how it shapes up and just the game as a whole. I was talking about this on Monday with Kevin, or with oh my gosh, my brain is totally fried today. John, and we were talking with Realm Maintenance about a lot of Overwatch stuff, and I'm just excited to see how Blizzard just keeps the game going in the future, because they've traditionally always been very good about maintenance and upkeep of their games. I mean, for crying out loud, you can load up Diablo 1 and still play it on Battle.net. Like, what other game company really does that? It's pretty rare in this day and age. But yeah, that's going to be, I think, it for the news for this week. But we are going to talk about the patches now. It's been a couple weeks since we've had a show, so there's a little bit to go through, actually. And we'll start with the April 13th patch. There's non-hyper-threading support now, so good quality of life stuff for the game, for everyone's computers and compatibility like that. And McCree's flashbang stun got increased. What do you think of that? Do you think it needed that little bump there, or is this a little scary to play against now?
I mean, it's kind of a net zero change, right? And let's be clear, this is not an enormous tweak. So the flashbang had its stun duration increased by 0.2 seconds, but the recovery time before McCree can actually do anything after a successful flashbang was also increased by 0.2 seconds. So if you're McCree in a 1v1 situation, this is a net zero change. It doesn't help you in any way. This is specifically designed to make it so that getting an effective stun off sets up your teammates. It sets up the ability to pick off someone who's been isolated. If you're working as a team, it sets up the ability to, immobilize a particular target. And that would make it so that you now have the ability for your teammates to jump in there and get something successful done, whether that's kill them outright or it sets up a really good Roadhog hook or something. But it's not I don't think it's a huge quality of life change for you as the McCree player, and I don't think it's super scary because it doesn't make it so that you're going to lose every duel situation to a McCree. It's just something that's going to make it so that you as the McCree player feel like maybe you have a little more to offer in a team fight scenario other than is my ult up. So I like it. I think it's a healthy change.
Yeah, I think it's not too bad. And like we were saying earlier, Jeff Kaplan had come out that now that we're so close to launch here, changes are going to be very minor and just dialing up or down things very, very carefully now.
Honestly, it's like 90% bug fixes, right? Like the next one on this list was
essentially a bug fix. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Reinhardt's Earthshatter was the only ult left in the game that, due to a coding error, was still generating ultimate charge. So the intent is that when you use your ult, it doesn't, whatever effect it has doesn't contribute to the charge of your next ultimate. And of all of them, there are very few where that was ever an option because they had to specifically do something like damage where that would actually contribute to your ult charge. And a lot of how ults charge have changed substantially since the initial implementation of this. But so because of that, Reinhardt sort of slid under. There was a bug where using Earthshatter could actually generate charge towards your next ultimate, and they fixed that. Minor thing, nice to see it cleaned up. I actually hadn't noticed that in game. So
I had no idea either. So
I can't imagine those it was a huge amount of charge.
Yeah, it can't.
Right? Like, it probably didn't do a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to notice something like that because if you're pulling off Earthshatter, that's the last thing you're looking at is when can I use my ult again?
2% towards my next one. Yay!
Exactly. Speaking of quality of life changes, Roadhog Chainhook now pulls smaller targets closer than larger targets, and Whole Hog, the ultimate there, decreased the movement speed penalty, so it's less severe for him. Chainhook, I do like this change because hitting smaller targets is more difficult than hitting larger targets. So that should be rewarded appropriately, I feel like. And Whole Hog, that's just a good change to that ult for him, I believe.
Yeah, on the whole, I think the ult change especially is a good one in the sense that it really... The movement speed thing did feel kind of punitive, and it's not like it's enormously different now. Like, you're not racing around at tracer speeds either, right? It's just something that makes it feel like when you hit it, if somebody is trying to move away from you, you don't automatically lose all efficiency and you still have some throughput because you can actually... You're not closing distance on anybody, but you're also not losing distance on them quite as fast. So I think it's a smart change. As far as the chain hook is concerned, I guess it's maybe significant in context of the melee changes they made a while back. But in general, I think it's just smart so that if you grab a small character, likely is not just based on the way the game works. A lot of the smaller characters tend to have better escape utility. It's a weird like design phenomenon where they make big characters move slow and small characters move fast. So it's definitely just designed so that if you do land that critical hook, you feel like you have the opportunity to get a shot off, get a melee in before they're immediately out of range already, because they're going to use their utilities and abuse movement mechanics to get the F out of dodge, right? So
Yeah, definitely.
it's again, like you're right. It's all just quality of life stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty much what everything is going to be from here on forward, unless they see something really crazy in the meta happen, or introduce new heroes at some point down the road, because that'll obviously require some changes. But we do have 2 other patches to cover, so we're going to truck on through to those ones here. April 19th, there was a patch, so that was pretty recent here. Progression change rewards got changed a bit. They got rid of those gray portrait frames that were for levels 1 through 100, and now all the remaining portraits are moving down a level here. So basically what was previously 100 to 200 is now 1 to 100, and the 100 to 200 frames now get a star. Also, they removed some of the less popular sprays. What's funny is they don't tell you what they removed, so we have no clue what got removed. But they do mention that they may return in future patches, and they changed it so that all heroes will have the same number of hero-specific sprays. So just cosmetic things. Big whoop. And the other big one, though, was, I feel like this is very interesting that they went ahead and did this. Hanamura apparently has a problem with spawn room doors, so they just completely disabled the map for now until they fix that.
It is actually fixed. The patch that came out today solved that, so they just had it disabled for a couple of days. Yeah. I mean, I think the spray thing is kind of a moot point. I'm sure we could really data mine and sort out which ones are available. My guess is that was actually intentional. They were probably measuring popularity to figure out which sprays were the most popular, make sure those ones were in at release, and then tweak back from there. But yeah, I mean, the Hanamura change, we're going to get to that in a second. They actually did solve it. It was just a bug with spawning room doors. And the other tweak they made on April 19th was to Route 66. There was an overwhelming number of people winning on attack on Route 66 because it was really oppressive how easy it was to just sort of get in position early on with that payload. So they've slowed it globally all the way through the map at all times by 10%, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it really
over
is.
time, though, it adds up.
Well, I mean, that assumes that if you're on the payload full time, it takes 10% longer. But the cumulative effect of that, if you're being pushed off of it, because now teams have a little more time to get in position, catch you at the relevant choke points, I think they feel like it's enough, and I imagine it probably is, because it's likely that we're going to see this patch being out a couple days ago. They've got some days worth of data already, and if it was problematic, they probably would have dialed it up or down again in the patch today, and they didn't. So I'm hopeful that that's showing a balance back towards defense, just because really I think that's the only map that's ever felt enormously favored as the attacker. Most of the other map changes have been to give attackers benefits, because there were so many maps like Temple of Anubis and stuff where they had to add doors and change pathing and stuff to make it so that you as the attackers had a hope of getting through those really, really punitive choke points. They also adjusted health pack placement on Route 66 as part of that sort of like rebalancing to try and solve the attacker win rate issue.
Yeah, and that's always nice to have. I'm assuming they're put into a position more for the defense here, since they were concerned about the win rate of attacking teams on this specific map. So I haven't had a chance to really play Route 66 since this change, so I'm interested to see where they are now. And it was always kind of confusing at first on Route 66 learning that map. They did seem in a little off positions that were kind of hard to get to. So it's just another nice quality of life change here. Volskaya Industries, they moved the initial spawning points further back So, because they were seeing, I guess, attackers win more often on that than they'd like. So they pushed the spawn point back a bit in the library to help the defenders hold the objective A. So another quality of life change there. They just, assuming they had their data on that, and we're like, well, let's see if this works, and we'll see if that works in the end. And just some bug fixes, traditional stuff in patches. And we did have one also today, April 21st. Like you had mentioned, Hanamura got put back in here. The issue affecting the spawn room doors resolved. McCree got another change here. His alternative fire recovery time, the time before McCree can shoot again, increased from 0.3 seconds to 0.75. Wow, that's quite a bit more increase in recovery time, I feel like.
I mean, it really is, but I think it was very intentional. If you looked at the way people were playing McCree, right from the outset, people were using his alt fire and the ability to quickly empty that entire clip as a way to do a lot of quick damage to a big target or to win a duel with a weaker character just in a 1v1 scenario. And the intent was that it was designed to be used as a finisher, not you could, fire it off, roll and fire it off again, or have it available to you really fast. Like they wanted it to be something that was a finisher, not your constant source of routine damage. Like there's a reason it's called secondary fire, right? The intent is that you use your primary fire, and then there are scenarios where it's smart to make the alternate fire choice. And there were a lot of people whose primary strategy with McCree was get up close and personal, right click, pray, reload, and do it again. And that's not the type of gameplay that they're trying to foster. So the change in that sense, I think, makes perfect sense. Also, in general, I just wanted to say, I think this change, as well as some of the stuff like identifying the payload speed tweak on Route 66, a lot of that probably was heavily influenced by the last test weekend, right? Because we did have a test weekend just recently here on April 15th and 16th. And my guess is they got a lot of data looking at new players who are not in the beta, are not familiar with all of the new maps, because they would be playing all of those maps for the first time. Even if they had played in previous test weekends, they'd be touching a lot of stuff for the first time this last weekend. And I imagine that's where they were able to identify some of the real issues where even a slightly coordinated team, or a team who had someone with some knowledge of the maps, was really able to push very, very aggressive strategies on Route 66, or take advantage of getting up close and personal with someone who didn't know just how powerful McCree's secondary was. And that's where I'm guessing a lot of these changes were spurred from, because these are things that have been in play for a long time, right? We just talked about McCree changes on the 13th, modifying the flashbang, trying to give him better contributions to team fights, really make him into less of a duelist, less of a 1v1 character, and more of a part of your overall offensive strategy. If they were going to identify changes for McCree, they were probably looking at the rest of his kit at that point too, right? So the fact that it very specifically happened now after these changes for the or specifically after we got through a test weekend, I think that's a significant factor. Yeah,
most definitely. And I'm excited to get into the game again here before the beta ends here, and get to play with some of these changes. Some of the supports are getting changes as well. Zenyatta, his Harmony Orb, it's getting increased from 25 to 30 health per second. So Zenyatta, we've kind of seen get pulled back quite a bit, I feel like, lately. I know we had a long discussion about the line of sight change on Zenyatta here. And this doesn't really necessarily help with that, but it does increase his healing. So when he is in line of sight, this will help him with that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not thrilled, right? I think the change that needed to be made, I mean, there were very specific strategic problems with how people were using Zenyatta. The buff here to amount of healing is really not, I don't think, all that substantial. Although it probably does contribute more in circumstances where you're trying to move as a group, but that was really not what the big Zenyatta nerf was about, right? The big Zenyatta nerf had a lot to do with how he was contributing to people moving around in small groups, where you're doing the multi-pronged attacks and you're able to advance on somebody from multiple angles, and somebody's getting that heal buff while they're way off in the middle of nowhere. So a harmony tweak up in terms of numbers, I can't say conclusively it's not a good thing, but I'm still really not thrilled that it's line of sight based. I was always more hopeful that Blizzard would revisit that and decide to go the route of something that had a duration so that it would fall off if you weren't able to get back to Zenyatta and get it reapplied. But having it fall off so quickly if they break line of sight in a game where breaking line of sight is such a critical part of the game just
Yeah.
still doesn't feel good. And I am like, it makes Zenyatta a higher skill cap character. He's still very present in the highest levels of play. He's still balanced in the strictest sense of that word, but I don't like it for whatever that's worth,
no,
right?
it's understandable. And would you say it feels bad, man?
That's exactly what I would say. Maybe not in those words because I'm not a meme lord, but it's okay.
Yeah, but
I'll allow it.
And then there was a bug fix here, and I'm just going to talk about it just because I found it fascinating that this was in the game. Apparently there was an issue on Route 66 that seems to be a common theme in these patches is Route 66, where the payload would automatically advance about 8 meters after the large doors opened without players of the attacking team being near it. It's counterintuitive to that 10% decrease in speed that they applied to the payload there, but it's been fixed, so yay for more even gameplay and more parity in it. And I think that might be it, unless you have some closing thoughts on just Overwatch as a whole. I feel like this is kind of we're wrapping up the beta phase of this game and getting ready for launch here.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing's shutting down, right? You have until Monday morning to enjoy it. So if you're in the closed beta, get the games in that you want this weekend, because after that, you're done until we get back into pre-order access, which isn't until the following week, and is only going to be for a week. So it's basically at this point, it's winding down. I think the bulk of the balancing is probably done. There is an advantage to the fact that most of the game's distribution is going to be purely digital. So if they do find something during the open beta, if something just is terribly broken, right?
Yeah.
They can still go in and fix it. They can still go in and do some minor tweaks. And unlikely as not, there'll be like a small launch day patch with some minor bug fixes and stuff. But in general, I think we're at the point where we've seen the changes we're going to see. The version of the game you're playing this weekend as the closed beta comes to a close is the version of the game that you're going to be playing next month when it launches. And I would encourage you to, if you have the time and the opportunity, definitely do play during that all access open beta from May 5th to 9th, regardless of whether you were in the open beta pre-order season or part of the closed beta prior to that. Just get in there, and that's a stress test is what that is. It's a chance for us to try and blow up Blizzard servers and see how much punishment they can take. It's a good idea for everybody who's got the opportunity to show up and be a part of that process. Other than that, guys, I mean, we're going to be talking about the game every week, everything that's coming down, everything we see leading up to launch. But this is it. Like, we are now at the end of the Overwatch beta, and that's crazy. I'm so blown away that it's already over. It feels like it only just started.
Yeah, and we are just getting started there.
The Payload is a production of BlizzPro. Find out more about Overwatch at overwatch.blizzpro.com. You can find your host throughout the week on social media.
Did I lose you, Jimmy?
No, I'm here. Sorry, I started the wrong outro here. So sorry about that. We're going to start this over again. But closing notes here. Send us your emails at thepayload@blizzpro.com. Make sure you're following us at Payload Podcast on Twitter. And make sure you're checking out overwatch.blizzpro.com for all your Overwatch news. We're always posting stuff there. And there's some really great writers there putting out some excellent content there. And if you want to check it out, jakebutno.ca does our awesome, incredible music. Scythedesigns.com does our Dread Scythe. He does our great overlays. They're gorgeous. Absolutely love them. Make sure if you're willing to, go out and put in some iTunes reviews. We will read those as we get them. And we are available now on Google Podcasts. Google Podcasts finally launched here, and we are going to be available on that as well as Stitcher Radio and anywhere else you get your RSS feeds for podcasts. And Kevin, any closing thoughts before I finally start the intro correctly this time?
No, man, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad that people have been joining us every week live over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro, Thursdays at 7 Pacific. It's been a lot of fun hanging with you guys, talking about the game, getting excited about it. I know that there were a lot of people who were upset that they didn't get a chance to get into the closed beta, and there's been a lot of people who are really just excited about the game, but really want to do something with that excitement. So it's your time, guys. In a little over a week's time, we're going to see those pre-order early access open beta players able to finally jump in and get their fix, and then the game's coming out here in a month. The wait is over. Thank you so much for supporting us while we waited. I hope that there's going to be lots of people looking up cool Overwatch stuff and joining our little community when the game is live. And I will be here the whole time, just ready and willing to talk about, especially all the Overwatch esports stuff that we know is coming down the pipe. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you all very soon.
The Payload is a production of BlizzPro. Find out more about Overwatch at overwatch.blizzpro.com. You can find your hosts throughout the week on social media. Find Jimmy on Twitter at DJ Tyrant, Kevin on Twitter at Lack of Realism, and John on Twitter at Kicked Tripod.
Yeah, because you're a freaking Heroes celebrity now, right? That's how that works now. Don't forget us little people, hey?